How do you believe your system is the most advanced in the universe? Let's review the numbers. Sega Genesis is 16 bits. 3DO is 32 bits. The Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford!
I'm a life, Bob. It's time you grew up, got out, upgraded. You know why the video game you were playing tonight sucked, huh? Because it was old technology, Bob. It was a 16-bit system. So do the math with me, Bob. If I offered you a 32-bit system, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Yeah, I guess. If I then showed you a 64-bit system, something with more power and better graphics, that would even be a better thing now, wouldn't it? Yeah, 64 would probably be better. This is the Atari Jaguar, Bob. We're talking the next generation of video games. There's 64 bits of raw gaming power, CD quality stereo sound, and state-of-the-art graphics that blows your old system away. That blows your old system away.
Oh, Bob. Maybe you'd like to watch this.
Oh my. So do the math. So do the math. So do the math.
Hello and welcome to RGDS, your retro gaming discussion show. It's Paul Driscoll here, aka the Drisk, and joining me is your friend and mine. It is Alistair Macmillan, aka Almac. How are you, buddy? How's things?
I'm very well, sir. How are you? I'm good.
Very good. Great to have you back. We haven't scared you off, which was good.
No, that's always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, as you've probably seen in today's episode, it's all about the ill-fated and misunderstood Atari Jaguar console. But before we begin, let's catch up what we've been up to retro-wise. So, Almac, what have you been up to? Sort of things.
Apart from, I guess, studying up a little bit for this particular topic, I have been doing a little bit of Donkey Kong Jr. stuff. So, as I mentioned before, got the board from the US when I was visiting last and got everything up and working eventually. And yeah, one of Pipesy's friends through his contacts and Discord channel, a guy called Ray Finkel, gave me some really good tips on how to improve my score and how to tackle a lot of the screens. So I've been watching a bit of his stuff on Twitch recently and trying to get a little bit better at Donkey Kong Jr.
I can never get on with any of that. The third one I can get on with because it's more shooty, but
so the third one is good as well. That's on the same board actually. I hadn't played that before, but like you say, that's very much more of a sort of a shooter
I quite like
type
that
scenario,
one.
isn't
I
it?
get on with it more. But did you see recently actually that I don't know how genuine it all is, but it seemed genuine. That guy who's been able to go past the kill screen.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I saw that in the chat, and yeah, it's quite involved. I think the chances of from watching the video and from what I took away from it were to try and do that in an actual real game would be nigh impossible. There was the movements you have to do in terms of going so many frames up and then down to try and drift up the ladders and then get all the way up to the top of the screen within 8 seconds.
Yeah.
It required some pretty elegant joystick waggling and on top of that a little bit of luck as well in terms of Donkey Kong had to pause at the right time as well before he threw barrels because you only have like 8 seconds to get there. So
yeah, I guess
it was interesting.
Yeah, it's just interesting that you can possibly do it because he was explaining, wasn't it? The reason of the kill screen is because essentially it reaches the limit, isn't it, of the
yeah, it's kind of like
timer.
The countdown basically. Although it looks like you have a timer on the screen, ultimately too many things have overflowed. Too many different buffers have overflowed there, and you only have about 8 seconds worth to actually get to the top, which in a regular game, trying to navigate ladders is impossible. So yeah, that's the end of it. But it was nice to see him get to not only past that one, but he managed to get past a couple of other screens as well and get to the fireball one at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to Alistair's, he basically was upfront about it. He save stated just before the kill screen, wasn't it? So he used that the previous time when he's gone to it, and obviously that let him try different scenarios and see could he get past it. But no, very, very cool. I just wouldn't know where to be. I don't have the skills that you have. I wouldn't be able to get anywhere near it.
Well, the thing is, I know what to do. I just can't do it. That's the worst. That's the worst part.
Cool.
Yeah, and other than that, I've been, as I say, I was having a little bit of an experiment for this particular podcast, trying to get a spinner working on my Atari Jaguar controller. So that was fairly straightforward, but still a little bit daunting to, take a pristine Jaguar controller and actually get a drill through it. So
yeah. And you have to use a Jaguar controller. You can't use like a...
You can't. I've seen a few people make their own controller, but ultimately you do need the circuit board from a Jag controller to put within the arcade stick if that's what you want to do. But a few folk have done that too.
Yeah, I mean, I have tried one of the early retro events I went to in Blackpool many years ago. Jeff Minter was there, and he'd actually got his spinner, so was able to have a go at Tempest 2000 on a Jaguar with a spinner with Jeff Minter there, and I was thinking, life doesn't get any better. Yeah, it's awesome. But
definitely not.
And thankfully, it's one of the few games I'm not brilliant at it or anything, but at least I'm not embarrassing at it. So for me, that's an acceptable bar.
That's good. But the spinner, and I wasn't sure how much of a difference it would make. That's the other thing. So I haven't tried to push for a high score. I used to be fairly decent at Tempest 2000 back when I first had my Jag, but it definitely makes it easier for sure.
Cool. So that's what you've been up to retro-wise?
Yeah. What about yourself? What have you been doing?
Well, a couple of things. So I picked up. I've really got to shout out this game. It's called Rogue Flight. Okay. It's on all the modern consoles. But it's basically like Star Fox. If Star Fox and 80s Anime had a baby.
Oh, yeah, I saw you posted a link in the Discord. Yeah, that looked really good, actually. And
certainly on the Xbox, it was like down to like 10 quid. So it wasn't like breaking the bank. It is really, really good, honestly. It had me at the intro, but when you go into it, and people watching the video version will see some of the footage playing right now, and it's... it's pretty cool, really. It's I've been really getting quite into it and sort of very happy. It's been a while for me to really get into a new game. Yeah, it did look.
So, I think I watched a few minutes of the video. It looked pretty cool.
Well, the other thing I've been doing, which I will be coming out with like a video of my top 100 arcade racers. I've been going down the rabbit hole of actually playing a lot of these arcade racers and just going back to them, and particularly because quite a few of these arcade racers with emulation like DuckStation and PS2 emulator and Dolphin actually making it better than it was in terms of visually. It just works so well. So I've been having a lot of fun playing through those and really, really enjoying. Can't wait to sort of share. I mean, what I'll probably do is I'm gonna like share the video and then hope people go on the journey with me as well, and I'm going to be seriously completing or getting close to completing each one is my plan.
That sounds amazing. I think I saw you dropped one of your previews of your list as you were forming it, so there was definitely some good mentions in there.
And I think there's some good off the wall mentions as well, which may be new to a lot of our listeners. So I'm hoping it'll be a voyage of discovery for people as well.
That sounds great.
And the third thing I wanted to mention was I'm really excited because they've actually given the date of release for Capcom Fighting Collection 2. It's on the 16th of May. And you know me, I'm not particularly into fighters, but I'm really quite into this one because one of my favourite fighting games of all time is Capcom's Project Justice, which is a really expensive Dreamcast game to buy. It's actually, ironically, it would be cheaper to buy the arcade board than it would be the Dreamcast game. So I've, apart from like on my chip Dreamcast, I've never really been able to own the original official copy. But this is quite a good lineup. So it comes out 16th of May. The Capcom Fighting Collection 2 has Capcom vs SNK, Capcom vs SNK 2. So I love those games. Capcom Fighting Evolution. So that's the one where they just throw everything, including all the Capcom history. Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, which I love that. I think I really... I really felt they hit their peak with Alpha 3. And then Project Justice, Power Stone 1 and 2. So that's those classics on the Dreamcast. I don't know if you ever played it.
I haven't played those, no.
No, they're really good. They're sort of like, they're 3D running around, and you're running around an arena. It's more zoomed out from your usual fighter. And you can pick up Indestructibles. It's a lot of fun, particularly multi. And then finally, Plasma Sword, Nightmare of Blistine. So that's, I don't know if you ever played that on the PS3 or what have you.
I haven't played that one either, no. That's new to me too.
You were too busy with doing the maths with Jaguar, weren't you?
Probably busy. Do the maths. Yeah, do the math. Absolutely. So when's that? 16th of May, and how much is that one? Then?
Well, I don't know. The other one was like, I think 20 quid, but just wait till it gets in a sale. is what I would do. That's what I was. Depends if you're obviously buying physical, it might be more, but I don't go for physical these days. I just I haven't got the space, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it looks like, I'm just having a look just now, so it looks like it's coming out in, like you said, a few platforms as well. So that's good.
Well, I'm really pleased because when they first announced it, it was on every platform apart from Xbox, and I thought another one does it get so
Another
many
one
of
you're
these
gonna
retro
miss.
packs I'm going to miss because I don't have a PS5, and I could do it on PC, but I don't know, for games like this when it's like really twitchy, I get a bit nervous with PC because it only takes like there's too many conflicting applications and tools.
And I guess Switch would be an interesting one. You're just not quite sure if I'm sure they would do a decent job of it, but
yeah, I'm sure they would. But I prefer buying things when it's like all about speed and stuff.
Yeah,
that it goes. So I sort of learned that with Horizon Chase Turbo 2 because I bought it on the Switch because that's all you could buy it on in the consoles. And you didn't feel completely like you were in control. You could feel that it was on runners.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Whether on the Xbox, I felt I was truly in control, and of course it looks even more gorgeous. Yeah, and it's probably the the number of frames per seconds and hertz and things that it's running at.
Yeah,
cool.
Looks good.
Anyway, so shall we go into the show itself?
Yeah, let's do that.
You want games? Jaguar's got fast 3D 64-bit games. You want slow, flat games? No. Slow is for turtles, flat is for boards, fast and 3D is for games. Jaguar games. So scary you'll cry like a whimpering fool. But you won't feel like a fool because the games won't be flat and slow. Flat, slow, flat, slow. Heard enough and get fast and 3D. Games that are now playing. Games that are coming soon. Games that get a 10 because they've got a good beat and you can dance to them. You want fast 3D games? Here's an idea. Atari Jaguar. 64 bits, $159. Yeah, $159. Do the math.
I'm going to pass this over to you, my good friend, because first of all, explain why the Jaguar is so special to you. Why, when the rest of us did the math and thought, nah, not for us, and we went
when you did the math,
ways.
you thought, nah, it doesn't quite add up. Is that what you thought?
Yes, yeah. And I'm just curious because you can't even say I was young and innocent because you're older than me.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, I need to try and work out now. How old was I? That's that's not good, is it? Yeah, so I think I was like 19, 20 when I sort of heard about it coming out. So yeah, old enough probably to know better. But I think I'd always been an Atari fanboy. So and I had my Atari ST, and it was like, oh, the next new thing that's coming out. Heard rumours about the Atari Jaguar, and one of my really good friends, he was pals with a local shop in Edinburgh, and they dealt in imports from Japan and the States and things. Yeah. And he said, oh, had I heard that basically they were going to be getting a hold of the Jaguars in? It had been announced. It was quite an exciting thing. They hadn't been thrusting the do the math too much at us, I don't think, by that point. But yeah, I think it was like 1993 it was released, and the shop in question said, we're actually going to be able to get them in time for Christmas, whereas we weren't going to get it in the UK until, we didn't know when, but it turned out I think it was the summer of the following year. Yeah. So we took the punt, parted with quite a little bit of extra money than it was probably worth, and in hindsight, when I think I saw a year or so later how much they were going for in Woolworths,
yeah, you kicking yourself. Mind you, did you get a chance to buy all these games for cheap? Because I do remember seeing the games quite cheap, wavering a bit at that point.
Yeah, I did get a few at that point, but unfortunately for me, I think, as we talk through this a bit more, the lineup just wasn't there, which is ultimately why it failed, right? So
it was a number of things, wasn't it? I mean, we'll say something, a little bit of the brief history, and then you can interject, because I know you know the history more. Because this sort of originally sort of kickstarted with some work that a UK developer called Flare Technology were sort of working. Right. They were probably better known for the failed Conix multi-system, which never got released, which was an interesting device, and Jeff Minter was quite heavily involved with that before it went to the wall. I think only one game is playable pretty much today, and that interestingly is on the Jeff Minter collection, which is
that's right. Cool. Yeah, I played that kind of as a bit of part of the research for this. I actually stumbled across that one as well, so that was good.
So it's kind of cool. But the Conix system had nice ideas, lots of ideas, but didn't ultimately go anywhere. And then you had obviously Atari, or the new iteration. This isn't like old Atari, is it really? particularly. You know, they were interested in coming back into the market. And Flare sort of had, they started working on the Panther, was it?
Yeah, that's right. It was the Panther. Right. Yeah.
And then that sort of morphed into what was originally really a 32-bit system, sort of became the Jaguar. They sort of upgraded it with another chip. You had the 2 chips, wasn't it? Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I find it a lot of our listeners probably be interested that Flare actually had 2 former Sinclair employees. You had Martin Brennan. There was also Richard Miller, who was from Perhillion Software. And you know, the sort of 2 of them. I mean Martin Brennan, I know he was the one behind the Z88. That was the you know, the sort of like laptop, quite ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And I think hardware-wise, really, really quite an impressive system. It was very difficult to program for, wasn't it? Because of the the PS3 found years later, when Sony and PS3 found years later, multi-chips are difficult to manage.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, 2 custom chips, 32 bits, the Tom and Jerry, and then the Motorola, the 68000, which people were probably more familiar with. But ultimately, I think reading back and on any of that sort of time frame for developers it was difficult to program for. That was definitely one of its failings. Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, one of the things I found interesting that John Carmack, who did the Doom port, which I will say actually, because he did that port outside of the PC, I would say the Jaguar is probably the best version until years later. I think it blows the Sega Saturn and later ones out the water. But I mean, John Carmack, John Carmack's, you know, went on record saying this, and he has no skin in the game really, saying that if it just has some frustrating constraints to the hardware, that if they just solved that, a few little tweaks here and there, they would have made it, you know, it would have been comparable to the PlayStation 1. In his view. Could have been better. I mean, I think there was also a very much a lacking of developer tools as well. That was another thing that was they kind of skimped on or missed out on. So the amount of third-party developer support they got was pretty lacking. Yeah, but the thing is, it was all, you know, Atari didn't have the funds, did they really? I mean, no. I always remember hearing anecdotally from some of the, you know, the magazine like reviewers and people in the industry, remembering that, you know, they were used to going to like these big events, like these initial ones, and it'd be like, you know, champagne and free booze and all of this, and they go to the Jaguar one and it was like cheesy Wotsits in a bowl and some peanuts. I mean, they just were on, but in other ways they spent an awful lot of money. I mean, this had a big advertising campaign behind it. Yeah, but I mean I've been watching or rewatching some of the amazing videos that they did, and they are quite cringy by today's standards. I love that infomercial. We're definitely going to share it on the link. Honestly, it's such an entertaining watch because it knows it's been cringy. It knows it's been cringy. It's just hilarious. I was watching it again before we got to chat again, and it was like, the woman in the red skin tight jumpsuit, and she's, you know, being all sultry with Bob. Yeah. The guy trying to convince him that his old 16 and 32-bit stuff, that's all rubbish. You want this new 64-bit and do the maths. And they keep showing how his life, like giving analogies. Could be better, yeah. She could be his secretary. Yeah. She could be the secretary serving him up, you know, champagne or whatever. And he could be driving a Ferrari. That's the equivalent of a 64-bit system. But what's funny is they're interspersing it with these like games that are clearly, even in the day, so far behind of what like other things. I mean, and that was the trouble. It is probably with the Jaguar. Not only did they not have the budget in certain places and on game development and things, and a lot of people weren't making the most. You know, outside of some of the ones we'll talk about, they weren't really making the most of the hardware. They were advertising it and over-promising it like it was the second coming. And it didn't quite work. Even as a kid, I remember, I mean, I was probably, when this came out,
probably like 16 or something like that. And I remember just like looking and thinking, you know, you look at the pictures,
it doesn't look revolutionary.
This looks like a SNES or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that was a problem though. Showing some of the, I mean, when you watch those infomercial stuff, some of the games just kind of missed. Some of them were good, actually, I would say. So when it showed Tempest 2000, some things we'll come to as well throughout this discussion were decent looking, but some of them were pretty bad.
I mean, I must admit, even as a 16-year-old kid, and ever since, actually, Alien versus Predator was probably the only one that made me waver. I think Jaguar, the Tempest 2000 at that time, as much as I fell in love with it when I got it on the Saturn, and you know, and then I got Tempest 3000 on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, it was Tempest 3X, wasn't it? Yeah. But because 3000 was the infamous Neon version.
Another one that Jeff Minter got involved with.
Another one, he's a death knell of any system.
Don't get him to do your first game.
But no, I just, at the time, I don't know, you wanted new and exciting at that period, wasn't it? Because we were on the cusp of 3D. And
I don't think, visually wise, I mean, ultimately it's Tempest, right? With filled in shading graphics.
I would love it now, and I loved it when I got it on the, you know, I was a little bit older, but my 16-year-old me, I don't remember being impressed with Tempest 3000. Tempest 2000. The only one that really had me like thinking, wow, actually this looks pretty cool was Alien versus Predator.
Yeah. Well, I mean, touching back to when I got my Jaguar. So the friend that I was put in touch with that shop with, we got our Jaguars. The first game with it, Cybermorph.
That was the pack-in game, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cybermorph, the pack-in game. It was fairly decent, and definitely it promised more than it maybe delivered in terms of its looks and everything. It did get a little bit annoying with the "where did you learn to fly" catchphrase as you bump into things.
Yes.
And that became a kind of a running joke. So, but my friend himself, I think he so loved the Jaguar, actually, he bought a Jaguar development kit. So he got in touch with Atari, him and some of his friends and me as well. We got a little bit involved in programming games for the Atari ST. I did some graphics and they did a bunch of coding.
Trevor McFair was born.
Thankfully, we had no hand in that whatsoever.
What game did you do?
I am pleased to say. So we did a game which never got released, and I'll share a link in this as well. There's quite a length of like things which were cancelled. So 231, I think, games which were in the pipeline but ultimately got cancelled.
Yeah.
And my friend's idea was, you know, he pumped a lot of money into this. He had to buy the Jaguar development kit, so he had to self-fund this. He was working full time. I was just going off to university, so I was doing some of the graphics. We did a game, and it was called Slam Racer. It's a driving game, sort of isometric, overhead, a little bit like one of the ones we're going to talk about today, actually, as well. But we never got it off the ground. There was a playable demo-ish. I think he did another sort of shareware game later and released it at one of the US JagFest festivals called Painter, which was a very simple overhead. You know, you complete the blocks and paint in the blocks, and they've got ghosts chasing you around the maze. So
that sounds fun.
On that release that he did, he released a demo of Slam Racer, but ultimately,
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, it didn't get anywhere. By the time that he was going back to Atari to say, hey, can we get an advancement of some funds to help us out? Because, you know, he was working full time and we're all doing this in our spare time. By the time it even got to that conversation, Atari was winding things up, and that was it. Never to see the light of day.
It was a weird time, wasn't it? Because I think to some of our younger listeners, understanding how it was, because things moved so incredibly fast. So you had reasonable stability of there was the Amiga and the 2D realms, you had the SNES and the Mega Drive. And then sort of CD, and suddenly there was all this influx of new things, 3D technology, CD technology, and you had all these systems that many just died a death or didn't last very long. The CD32, the CD-TV, the CDI, all these systems just didn't like the 3DO. You know, I mean, in fact, quite a few of the games got cancelled were like put over to the 3DO, like Demolition Man and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing. I think the 3DO, I mean, it didn't fare too well, but Atari by that point was doing even worse. I think some of the stuff that I saw online was by November 95, the 3DO itself had a 1% share of the market, and Atari's was less.
Yeah.
so yeah, you're not going to do well at that sort of.
I mean,
point,
as soon as the Sega Saturn and then the PS1 came along, it was game over. So it was quite a short window, really.
They tried their best. You know, they brought out the CD unit, which me and my friends did joke about. It looks like a toilet seat.
It does, though, doesn't it? It looks like a toilet. There's no other way of describing how that got past the.
Oh yeah, how did someone design that? I have no idea. Maybe it's a joke, and it just managed to get all the way through.
Well, they were trying too many things at this point, wasn't it? Because they tried with the Virtuosity, which was in Leicester, you know, that did all the early first virtual reality systems. Remember those?
Yeah.
They did a deal with them and did a headset. But one of the things with the Jaguar, which was quite sad, a what if, is because they were beset with delays of development. If they had got this system out when they had planned to, just that couple of years earlier, where it really was going up against the stairs and had the number of years to perhaps build up, they were quite slow for them to get to market, where it wasn't quite as impressive as when they first showcased it.
Yeah, I think if you showcased some of this a year or two before, you would have been probably a bit more impressed. And if the CD unit had come out quicker and the VR headset had become an actual thing, I think there's a couple of prototypes, but nothing ever made it.
Well, the game with the virtual reality thing, the first prototype, they went back to the drawing board because it wasn't suitable enough, really, the first thing. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, Atari just didn't have the funds to keep at it, and then as soon as and you could see that as you watch some of the like the infomercials and adverts, you can feel the desperation sort of like creeping in, and we'll give another controller and another game, and you're like, oh bless.
And then you walk past Woolworths and the games are a £5, and you're
but don't we all wish going back and buying those £5 games, because like.
Oh, I wish now for sure. Yeah, I mean during COVID times. So I mean, I actually sold my Jaguar back then after the Slam Racer stuff got shelved. I kind of lost interest a little bit. Uni was wrapping up by this point as well, so having to think about proper responsibilities and getting a job. I was just like, oh, put all this behind me for the minute. And I think I sold my Jaguar in my dad's garage car boot sale type thing for like hardly anything. And big regret now. So during COVID, I actually rebought a boxed Jaguar. Nice. Never been touched. So cool. I got that, and I've managed to collect, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 original games.
Oh, nice! Quite a collection. Yeah.
Quite a nice collection, but yeah, some of them now are ridiculous prices. I'm not interested in that now.
You got a game drive at all?
Yeah, I got a game drive. I got a bonus at work a couple of years back, and treated myself to the game drive, and that's really good. I mean, it now plays the CD games as well, and the homebrew scene is like nuts. There's hundreds and hundreds of games that people have written.
Really is quite impressive. I have to say, I mean, I've always, for all my jokes and things like that with the Atari Jaguar, I mean, obviously I was using the emulator, which is Big PMU, isn't it? Big Puma emulator. And my takeaway with it, with the ones you'd selected and things like that, and even trying some of the homebrew ones and that, is actually, I was quite taken with how it's better than I thought it would be with a lot of these games.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, because even like on the Atari 50th anniversary collection, when they got some Jaguar games, I mean, because they chose Cybermorph, and they did, was it Club Drive, was it? And,
why would you choose those games, honestly?
Yeah. And Atari Kart, which we mentioned, but it wasn't really. I mean, they do have Tempest 2000, which is wonderful.
Tempest 2000, and I think they have. Is it Trevor McFur's in there as well? Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The ones they chose were not particular ones you would sell you on why you would dive into the Atari Jaguar, really.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. Well, shall we go on to the games themselves then, or any more you want to say on the history?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, let's go into the games. Bubsy in the Fractured Furry Tales.
Oh, was that the first one you're going for?
That's the first one we're going to go for. We'll get that one out the way. And I hate to say that because on one hand, so released in 94 and 95, depending where you were. So I think I got this one actually not long after my imported Jag. So North America, December 94, and it came out the following month in Europe. So interestingly, it was done by the same folks that did Viking Child on the Atari Lynx, which I did like as well.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cutesy platformer. You play Bubsy the cat, and it is really nicely drawn. I would say it's great. Got great pixel art. The sounds are good. The frame rate is good. It runs well. I just found it a little bit tricky.
A little bit tricky. It's like
I'm trying to be nice.
do you know it's weird?
I don't know if it was just me or if it was something else, but
just the slightest touch and it's like insta death.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
but there's something about this game, and it brought back memories because I've only played this game twice, but in both times in this sort of morbid addiction where where you start off, you say Busby the
Bubsy
cat
yeah.
or whatever, and you start off in Alice in Wonderland like level, which is pretty cool, and there's lots of little references, and as you say, it's got a lot going for it. There's collecting the good enemies and things like that, and it's just too hard for its own good. That's the trouble. He moves too fast, so it's far too easy to like run into enemies or fall off the edge and things. But having said that, there's something about it that just makes it. I'm gonna well play again and have another go.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's a good job you get.
further.
It's a good job you get so many lives. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because and the mechanic that's there as well, right? So if you are lucky enough to actually get off the level, it does have the level codes. So again, a common theme through all of these games actually, which I was probably unaware of at the time back in the 90s, but I'm fully aware of now, is that there are loads of codes, loads of cheats, loads of little sort of hidden Easter eggs and things by typing in numbers and stuff. And again, maybe not so easy to do potentially through the emulator. I mean,
I
you
was
can map
totally
all the
confused.
keys
I
for
couldn't
sure.
work it all out. It was like
But on the actual physical controller, you know, it's quite easy to punch in some of these codes. And some interesting things which I might touch on for some of the others. But yeah, the jumps were so hard. It took me a while. You could actually hold one of the buttons and get a sneak peek of the screen ahead. You could kind of move the screen ahead of you to get a look at where enemies might be. But yeah, just a very tricky game.
It
But
is
lovely graphics.
lovely graphics, and it is a unique one. I mean, this didn't appear anywhere else, so it's a Jaguar unique one. Not maybe one that you would necessarily sell it on, but
Yeah, I think I read that Imagitech, who were ultimately bought by Gremlin and became part of Gremlin Interactive. So I think it stemmed out of I think it was Bubsy and Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind. So they wanted to develop something original for the Jaguar. So that's where this kind of came from.
Yeah, because you know, some of the people who worked on this, because of Magitech, obviously worked on Raiden, the Jaguar port as well.
That's right.
So that's kind of like cool. Yeah,
Yeah, did a few.
It's a weird one. This where, it's not good, but there is something about it.
There is something about
draws
it. I don't know what it is. It's like, because I was the
Yeah.
same. I was like, this is impossible. But yeah, 2 hours later,
I'm still playing it. Yeah,
I'm still playing the damn thing. So, and I was getting further. Don't get me wrong. I was getting further into the level, and you know, managed to get through the first level, and then discovered there's some other level codes as well. So, some of the other levels are lovely as well. They're really well drawn, beautiful levels.
Yeah. It's got nice variety, isn't it? It's just mechanically, it just frustrates, isn't it? That's the trouble. Which
Just a shame. It could have been. I guess it could have just been so much better.
Yeah, no, it's still, it does show me, like, actually one of the common themes when we go through the games, for a large chunk of it, when they stuck to 2D, it really showed how beautiful the Atari Jaguar is, really, in terms of its.
Well, it's. I mean, it's 64-bit, isn't it? You know, it's 16.8 million colours.
But it did have amazing amount of colours on it, didn't it?
Yeah,
And,
it was very good looking.
Yeah, no, interesting one to start on. But I agree with you. I think there's something compelling about it, but I couldn't recommend it with.
I couldn't recommend it unless
just try.
Unless you want
it.
some punishment.
Yeah, just try it and see what you think. But you'll probably don't blame us when you're playing it swearing blue murder.
Well, I will tell folks that do try it. There's two things to definitely watch out for. One will be there's a button press, as I say. If you're standing stationary, you can kind of look ahead of the screen. You can move the screen right and up and down, so you can check where the jumps are, check where enemies might be. And the other one is if you are jumping, there's the glide mechanic, and if you glide into an enemy, you will pretty much always kill them. Whereas if you're typically running through a level, you have to land directly on their heads, sort of Mario-esque to kill the enemies. So
failing all that, there's this wonderful button switch on the device that
says off. Yeah, there's that too.
No, it's an interesting one, and it was fun going back to it. But my God, it made me cross. Go on then, what an exit! You haven't sold me yet, Bob is not convinced yet.
Bob is not convinced. Oh dear, we need to do better. Let's jump to Raiden, which you mentioned. So this one again, same guys, Imagitech design. I think Mark Hooley was the founder of Imagitech, and he was also the level creator for the last game we talked about.
Yeah.
And this was 1993. This came out.
Yeah.
And I loved this. I thought it played really well. The sprites are lovely. I could see the bullets clearly, which is one thing I hate in shoot 'em ups when you get hit by something and you've no idea what it was. So the controller, it isn't the best, I would say, on the original hardware. I played this on both. So I played a lot of these on the original hardware and I played it on the emulator. I would say the emulator is slightly better because you have probably a slightly tighter control if you're using some sort of gaming pad.
Okay. So the control being better rather than the emulation.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And a few people I have seen as well, when I was looking at my spinner mod for Tempest, I did notice a few folk have done modifications for this game too. They've added in like an auto fire for the controller, because with the Jaguar controller, trying to get that auto, firing quickly is you get a pretty sore thumb after a while.
Because we haven't talked about the controller. It's quite a weird.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, because I've only ever used it once or twice at retro events, but it's basically you've got the D-pad obviously, and then you got is it 3 buttons?
Yeah, you got 3 buttons, A, B, C,
and then you've got like a keypad.
You got like a telephone keypad in the middle,
which is like I don't know why they thought that was a good idea in the 90s, but they did. But I suppose it's a throwback to some of the.
I think it's almost like a throwback to like in television, ColecoVision stuff, and Atari stuff, where because the games do all come pretty much with a little overlay that you can place into the controller across those 9 things. Can be useful for things like Alien vs Predator. Some of the buttons on there are like for strafing left and right and doing some other stuff, or shortcuts to get to weapons and things like that for some games. So it had its uses, but
how's the D-pad hold up?
It's a little bit spongy. I would say, for Raiden it was not great. I would say that. For most other games, it's been absolutely fine. It's been good.
No, it's. But you're right. Go on to Raiden. It's really is quite a cool shooter. And it's a great version. You've got all the colours, as you say. Obviously, it's a shame, given that it has 64 bits and all the next generation, that for whatever reason, a third of the screen is taken up with the display.
That is probably the most frustrating thing about it.
Yeah, because it makes it quite difficult, because suddenly you haven't got a lot of room to manoeuvre. But despite that, it does play fantastically well. I got on several stages in this and was having a real blast. I really was enjoying it. It's a good, one of the better home ports of Raiden, really, isn't it? Sort of
Yeah,
feels
definitely.
Very, very solid.
And as you scroll across the screen, left and right, the enemies are off the screen, and the scrolling is really smooth, and it's it's parallaxed as well. You get a good sense of sort of depth perception, with all the enemies below, and good choice of weapons, all that sort of stuff that you would expect.
Yeah, I just don't understand why they couldn't have made, because clearly the Jaguar had the power, and the fact that it zooms in and out the display. I mean, even if they gave you an option to just make it go to the side, if you want, one of those many telephone buttons.
Maybe there is, and we've all missed it all this time.
It could be, but no, I thought this was a lot of fun. Definitely, yeah. Bob quite liked this. I don't know whether 16-year-old me would have been quite as impressed. Because I would be thinking of some of the certainly I'm trying to think at this time, because I didn't have a Saturn at this time or anything, because I obviously came later, but this held up pretty well. I probably wouldn't have been thinking this is next generation, but it certainly was a evolution on what was around at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Nice.
Yeah, surprisingly it only got average reviews back in the day. Really, sort of like middling reviews, which surprised me, because I thought people would have been more impressed with it. But
I think a lot of the reviews back then probably were kind of just geared towards just what you said there, right? They were expecting more.
Yeah,
they just 64-bit. It should be that next generational leap, and it kind of just fell a little bit short of that in some of these. So,
and that was the trouble with their advertising, isn't it? Because they push so hard in the advertising that by not having 64-bit, you're not going to get the best gaming. This is truly the next step in gaming evolution. I mean, they pushed that really hard, and of course none of it was true. It just didn't back up when you saw a lot of the games. I mean, some of them, like we mentioned, made a good case for this is next generation, but even the when I compare it to like Banshee on the CD32, this was sort of in the same ballpark, really. That sort of visuals and colours. So Bob enjoyed that, Bob the infomercial Bob. I thought it was all right.
It's not bad. We're getting there.
We're getting there. Better than Busby. Busby?
Better than Bubsy. Bubsy. Oh, he's the bird from BT.
Yeah, but BT bird, Busby. Yeah.
Maybe he'd have been a better addition to the game. I don't know.
Why has there not been a Busby game? That's what I want to know. Use your Jaguar
let's pitch it.
Dev kit and make it.
Exactly. Let's do it. Let's go for Power Drive Rally 1995 by Rage Software. So it's a conversion of the 94 game Power Drive, which came out in a lot of systems. I had a lot of fun with this, actually. This is a really expensive one to buy these days.
Is it?
Yeah, you're probably looking at upwards of £100 for this.
Is there any particular reason? I mean, obviously rare. But...
I think rare is for a lot of these. Yeah, not a lot were made, not a lot were sold. So
I suppose 95 was it tail end? Was it because I mean?
Yeah, I think we're getting towards the tail end now. 95.
Yeah.
I mean, they sort of dragged into 96, 97, but I mean, I think Atari had already dropped it by then.
Yeah.
So, but no, I found this game. It was good fun. So it's a kind of 3D isometric rally game. Driving, you got to get around the circuit in time. You've got you have to beat the timer. Some of the races, there's a lot of weather in here as well. So be dry games where you're driving at night or through the rain, and they all have a good impact on the car as well. So variable weather, surface conditions, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot like they were quite the rage, wasn't it? Like a lot of Neo Geo ones had this, wasn't it, with 1000 Milia Rally and Overtop and stuff like that. And this is a good version of that. Certainly Blue, as say comparable ones like you had on the Amiga, which were overhead like ATR or anything like this. This really holds up to that kind of like SNK arcade game you used to get in this ilk. Nice range of cars, isn't it? And you say good weather effects, and it's quite cool when you drive at night and put your lights on when you work out how to do it.
Well, I was going to say, if you had to be, maybe that's what we're paying so much for the box copy these days. But if you get to be overlay card, you can see which button is for the lights. So I was like, oh my god, what a difference that made. I was driving in the dark. So
I was just like using the number pad because on my emulator I said it all. I was like trying everyone, thinking there must be lights here.
It's got to be one button somewhere.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
The only bit I did. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say the only bit I didn't like was the skills test. Very difficult.
Very annoying. Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah. Once you get past it, again, it picks up again. But just you kind of go through a few levels. You get there, right? Fantastic. You've got the idea of the controls, and then you get this skills level where, again, you're overhead, and it's like one of those sort of test circuits with all the cones laid out, and you have to drive forward, stop on a particular line, manage to do a 3-point turn, stop again. You have to reverse into somewhere, then drive around the course without hitting cones. Now that sounds simple. Unfortunately, the turning circle in these cars is
like trolleys, aren't they?
It's like a
trolleys.
Truck or something. It's like an articulated lorry. They do not turn on a sixpence for being such small little cars. So that was frustrating. But apart from that, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like this because it's got fantastic variety. It's actually got pretty good AI where it was giving me a good run for the money and quite exciting where you were, swapping places and getting ahead. You always felt you were in a reasonable fighting chance once you got and it was always your mistake if you mucked it up. And as I say, I love the variety of the tracks. I mean, it was one of those which made you want to see the next location you were going to be in and things like that, because it goes everywhere from like Finland, Italy, and it's truly around the world, isn't it? And there's so much variety to the places that you will play in, racing. So I was quite taken with this one. It was completely new to me for the show.
Yeah.
And you said it was based on Power Rally, was it? I've not played that one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is that, the Power Rally came out on the SNES and things?
Power Drive it was, sorry. Power Drive.
Oh, I played Power Drive. That was on I know CD32 had.
Power Drive, yeah. Super Nintendo, Amiga, CD32.
Yeah, I remember it on the
Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar. And if you look at some of the graphics, the pixel art for that, very similar, but definitely a lot.
Yeah, now you can
better
say it.
and
I can
accurate
see
for
it.
this one.
Yeah, I never sort of tweaked. This is by far the better game. Yeah, no, I should have guessed because Power Drive Rally, they only added another name to it. But this is so much more. Yeah, this is so much more to it. And I would have been quite impressed with this as a kid. I mean, again, did it feel... it's more... But a lot of these ones that we're going through, they were definite evolutions of what you had on other systems. When I compare this to Power Drive on this CD32, for example, similar sort of period, this is definitely the better game and the one you would prefer. I mean, I would be over the moon if I saw this on the CD32.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Edge gave it 6 out of 10. And going to America, GameFan gave it 79%. So, I mean, that's pretty respectable. I mean, you've got to remember Edge were eternally grumpy, so they tended to go with the old... Well, they tended to go with the old thing, like 5 is average, so above average.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's probably fair.
Yeah. I quite enjoyed this one, and it's definitely one I'm going to go back to and play a bit more.
Good.
Runs, all of these, by the way, run so well on the, to our listeners with the big PMU. I was so blown away with, because originally I used RetroArch and the games just weren't running properly, and quite a few of the games wouldn't run at all.
Yeah.
And I remembered when I went to you and said, what's the emulator that I should be using? And you'd said with this one, I remember getting the very first version of this, being impressed, and then completely forgetting about
forgetting it even existed.
Existed,
the guy's done it's an amazing job. It's so
really
so many
is.
things you can tweak as well.
Yeah, very, very impressed. So, yeah, I urge, if you've got a gaming PC, and is it on any of the, because I know you've got like Raspberry Pis and things, does it have like anything on those that you're using? I
don't think so. I think if you are Raspberry Piing it, then you're going to be stuck with things like RetroArch, that type of stuff.
Yeah, which the cores just don't work that well in my experience.
Yeah, it's not so good. But no, he's done a really, really good job of this. Just have a look to see just now where I think it's on the App Store. It's Windows. Yeah, it's got Windows version and Linux version as well.
Okay.
So a few different options for folks.
You're an Apple boy, like.
No, not me.
Oh, not you. Oh, that's right. That's all right. Yeah, so we no idea.
I'm a
if you're an
Windows
Apple
boy as well.
You're a Windows boy as well. Yeah, part of the PC master race. Rah. Yeah. No. No. It's definitely. It's a good one.
Good. Glad
Cool.
you enjoyed that.
Right. So go on then. How are you going
Next
to
one?
entice me? You're wearing the leather leotard. I noticed now. So I'm getting
Oh my
more
God.
interested.
I was trying to wear the leather jacket, but let's go. So the next one, probably an obvious one in terms of let's name a good game on the Jaguar and unique, which was Rayman.
Yeah. No,
So-
well, I don't think it's as obvious as you would say, because a lot of people, I mean, if you were to ask a lot of people, either the Saturn or the PS1 is where they first played it, or on the PC.
Maybe, yeah.
But of course, it really was on the Jaguar, which was its original home. So let's describe it for those who don't know with Rayman. So Rayman is this like beautiful artwork 2D platformer at a time when it was proud to be 2D and artistic, beautifully drawn, at a time when they were trying to make everything 3D. So it sort of stood out from that sort of way. And you play this sort of like little French weird little squidgy nose character with kind of cool sort of like quiffing overhanging hair. That probably is the biggest standout thing is that he doesn't have arms or legs or a neck. It's all sort of floating by one another, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he just makes his way sort of rescuing these trapped little orb things, isn't he? And going up against the I never bother following the story, but you got like these, like all these weird like enemies and things, and it's just a really good 2D platformer at a time when they were beginning to fall out of favour, and it really impressed. But I'm can only imagine. I remember being impressed by this on the Sega Saturn and where I bought it, and the PS1, but this would have been, a couple of years earlier.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, in a lot of ways, I found it more playable, this version.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very well hung together. The graphics, and the sprite work's phenomenal. The backgrounds are absolutely gorgeous. Like you said, all the little guys that he's saving, little cartoony sprites, lots of sort of slapstick humour, with his, probably what we're more familiar with now in terms of, his hands that sort of ping away from him, and like a big sort of power punches, and very cartoony styly, whizzing his arm round about his head so he gets a good powerful punch on somebody. So
and of course he went on to do like many sequels, Rayman 1, 2, and then eventually went 3D, and then thankfully back to Rayman Legend, Rayman Origins,
Rayman Legends,
and Legends, which
Legends,
Legends is one of my favourite. The sequel after Origins is one of my favourite platform games of all time. I absolutely adore that game, and but this, I found it really, really good. I mean, I did notice that the music was a bit more compressed than, because then obviously because it's not got the CD version, so it's got the constraints of the cartridge and the limited size. I don't know, we probably only had like 2 to 4 meg on some of these cards.
Normally 2 or 4 meg, these cards.
So I totally got with that, but I did find it genuinely, not only does it look absolutely fantastic with its colour palette and things, but more importantly, I found the jump and the movements just felt a little bit more honed. It's almost like they didn't do exact 1-to-1 recreation on the other ports and this one just seemed to feel a lot better. I felt more in control. The jump was a little bit higher, and yeah, I really was quite taken with this one. And this one must have really blown people, well, maybe not blown people away, because people were at that weird time where they wanted 3D and they saw 3D as a sort of way. But I certainly would have loved to have had this back in the day when it got released.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, again, it was fairly much towards the end of the Jaguar's short life as well. So again, September '95, like you say, really fluid, lovely looking game. To be honest, when you mentioned there about Rayman Legends, played that with my kids. When that was released a few years back, and going back to this again, I thought it was comparable almost. Maybe that's just my old eyes, but
no, it gives
but the artwork was lovely.
Yeah, its artwork's gorgeous, and yeah, just the humour. There's so much variety. I remember Kingy and me covered the PS1 version of this when we did we were talking about like PlayStation platform gems and things like that. And I sort of fell in love with this Rayman. Because I played it a lot for that show. But yeah, I'd probably say, and it might be my nostalgia, that maybe the Sega Saturn is perhaps still the best version with the CD. Depends how important the music is to you. But consider it did feel, I don't know, it seemed to get further and it felt more on par with this one. So I definitely want to go back to this. This might become my favourite version of this game.
Good.
But it certainly went above the PS1 version for me.
Yeah, and it certainly took Bubsy to new levels as well.
Yes.
In terms of playability.
Yeah.
So this is how you make a game.
Yeah, it is a shame that as I say, it just came. A lot of these games that are quite impressive just came too late in the day, because basically Atari didn't have the funds to keep going at it, and they just couldn't hope to compete against Sega, or even Sega didn't have the hope to go against Sony. So what hope did the Atari with its limited attack plan? Clearly it was gone a losing battle, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame, but I'm glad you liked that one, so that's good.
Yeah, no, you're selling me more. Bob is getting more and more impressed.
He's getting more excited, so that's good.
Yeah. It could be the leotard, though. That's,
Thank you. I'm glad we're not doing a webcast of this. That's good.
Yeah, that's just for our private showing.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get the Patreon subscribers for that. Yeah.
Only fans,
don't you dare, Mick. Was one that I loved back in the day, 1994, from Lamasoft. I wonder if you can guess what it is.
Well, it's going to be one of
Could
two,
it be?
to be fair.
That's true. Well, it's the Tempest 2000.
The good one. Okay.
The good one, yes.
Yeah, this is an impressive game, isn't it?
Definitely. And for me, it's the music probably is kind of what makes it for me. And that's and so nostalgic, super zapper recharge. Let's make sure we get that in there. And some of even the bonus levels, right, where you're flying through the rings. So the basic premise again. This is Tempest. It's got a lovely upbeat sort of dance track all the way through, which does change a little bit. We've got lovely particle explosions as you're clearing each level. I think it's 100 levels, something like that. But I've been fairly far through, maybe to 80 odd, but yeah, it gets pretty damn tricky. I'm hoping the spinner is going to help me, actually. Maybe I can elusively get the top score. Who knows? And
I've got to say, it plays so well on, because obviously this was originally and only on the Jaguar. Only years later you got as I say, you had Tempest 2000 that came to the Sega Saturn. The PC, I think, might have had one. Then you had 3X, wasn't it? Tempest 3X, which was on the PlayStation 1. And yeah, this is really, really impressive. It's such a great update. I think it's the best work personally that Jeff Minter's ever done in terms of, actually of any of his games. For me personally, this just hit the pinnacle of because it's everything I love about Jeff Minter games, where it's trippy, it's wild, it's got amazing effects, with all the numbers flying at you, like the score, and combined with the music, you're just in the zone, taking out all the enemies. And I have to say that I found playing the Jaguar version, again, the ports of it are quite, not pale comparisons, but because they're comparable, but it's definitely best on the Jaguar, in my opinion. And
I would agree.
And I was quite taken with this. The thing I will say is on the Atari 50th anniversary pack, the one that Digital Clips did, they obviously have this game, but they've also patched it so you can play it at
60 hertz as well, can't
60
you?
hertz, and that's like smooth as butter. That's definitely the best way to play it.
Yeah.
But I love this game, and it does everything right. You're right, the combination of the music, the gameplay. You got the different modes, haven't you? You got traditional or Tempest 2000 or the Plus. I mean, I always just go for the Tempest 2000, and you get the droid bots, the AI droid bots and things that sort of help shoot your way through.
And when you're really struggling, you can jump off the thing as well and evade all the baddies from doing that.
Yeah, he just knows how to hone a game, isn't it, to perfection.
And what's it's so easy to build the lives up as well, and then it's so easy for them all to disappear. That's
once you lose the zone, you can go horribly
it's
wrong.
Gone.
You can go horribly wrong. No, it was great going back to this, and I played
the bonus stage. I love the bonus stage. With almost that like kind of streaky bacon type effect where you're flying through the speed boost and having to navigate through the rings, and it gently increases, and all the little sound effects, from the yes to getting through to the end of that, getting some bonuses. It's a good way to do it. I think what's also amazing was that he programmed this with the notion of a rotary controller being there. So it's not the fact that you actually, that I took my controller apart, put in a potentiometer and a rotary stick and wired it up to the left and right. I mean, that's fairly straightforward. But what I found was that, Jeff Minter had actually programmed this so that you go into the controls, and if you press, I think it's the pause or option button on two controllers, you have to have two controllers plugged in at the same time, a hidden option appears, and that hidden option allows you to choose the player one option of either joypad, or you can change it to rotary.
Yeah, very cool, isn't it?
So that, he had the foresight to build that control mechanism in, even though there was never been an official, spinner controller released for the Jaguar. So that's been really nice to sort of experience the game that way as well.
Yeah, as I say, I remember my jaw hitting the floor years later on the Sega Saturn. So I would have loved this. Although at the time, it didn't still feel like next gen in terms of what people were associating with next gen.
No,
it was 3D with older eyes, and even when I was a bit like reaching sort of like 18, 19 when I actually got it on the Sega Saturn, I was starting to appreciate older games a bit more, and that's idea of, because I guess I've never fully taken in on with the next gen of everything, you know what I mean? I could see the cracks of the Mega CD and all these other systems that really aren't the next gen.
Oh no, we just plug the 32X in the top, it'll make it even better.
Yeah, looking at the grainy video and thinking, but where's the gameplay? Yeah. Which, incidentally, I feel with a lot of modern games as well. It looks pretty, but where's the gameplay? Excellent.
That's true.
Rob is really excited now. He's ready to dial that number after Tempest 2000.
Oh, if I'd known that, I might have saved the best. I might have should have saved the best to last, shouldn't I? I've got to keep this upward trajectory going now.
Is the next game Busby 2?
Oh, no. No, you'll be glad to know it's not. It's actually Iron Soldier 2.
Oh, that's quite a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, so 1997. This was a Clip Software design. I think they started it. I didn't read into the full history of this one, but the publisher ended up being Telegames. Again, this is right at the tail end of the Jaguar's life. Interestingly, it came out in a CD first. They did obviously, well, not obviously, but they subsequently released a cartridge version as well of the same game. And it's another very expensive one to try and get these days.
Because I did play Iron Soldier 1 initially because I misread what you'd written, which is very good as well, actually.
It's good too. Yeah, it's good too.
Yeah.
But I'd say all the frustrations you probably had with 1 have been ironed out, I would say, in 2. So
yeah, I thought that both are very, very good. I mean,
yeah,
great use of 3D, isn't it? And great explosions. I mean, do you want to describe it to our listener?
Sure, yeah. So Iron Soldier 2, you are basically, it's mech robots. So you're a big mech robot. There's a bunch of missions in this one. To be honest, I didn't get too far. I maybe got to 2 or 3 missions in. It's not tricky, but I definitely found this a lot easier on the original hardware, and that's because of the button mapping. So this is where it actually came in very handy. So you choose from a couple of missions here at the beginning. You can arm yourself, your mech robot, with a cannon. You've got a melee option. You've got some grenades that you can attach to your hip areas. And then the first mission is very straightforward. There's a couple of bases there that you basically flatten everything. So,
yeah, I just blew up everything,
Yeah, blow up everything. There's tanks.
And it's fun, because there's so many good explosions. And
you can stand on them as well, because you're a great big robot. So you can just stand on the tanks. There's helicopters coming in. There's gun turrets. There's a lot to try and kill. You've got there's a radar there on your screen, so you can see where everything is coming from.
And it feels like you're in a mech warrior robot when you're, as you're doing the movement.
It's just kind of plodding around. You can move at a decent speed, and you can go forwards and backwards, quickly. But definitely the Jaguar controller came into its own on this one, believe it or not. I don't say that very often because the controller is pretty clunky. But the overlay you get has a kind of an image of the mech warrior. And so it's very easy to see from a sort of a telephone display that if you want to quickly arm or change weapon to something, you can press the corresponding button to where it would be on your body.
That's kind of cool, yeah.
So, the 4 and 6, that's your hip weapons and type of thing, or the 1 and 3 gets your grenades and all that sort of stuff. So, and again, holding a combination of the A, B, and C as you rotate will actually turn you really quickly. So if you're getting shot from behind, you can spin round actually very fast, as opposed to having to slowly plod and turn round. So I had a lot of fun with this one, I must say.
I had a lot of fun. This was one of my favourites. I really, really enjoyed. I'm just curious though, when you talk about the overlays and things, so
yeah,
I mean, is there any like a adapter that you can use to plug Atari Jaguar controller into, like, to USB, like into a PC or something?
There are a couple that some people have made. It's kind of like an open source. I haven't actually managed to find anybody selling one. Maybe 10 years ago they were quite, well, not maybe common, but they were certainly available. I did find some open source documentation on how to build one. There was a few people had a JagLink, and it was exactly that, Jaguar controller to open source circuitry to then take it to USB, and then you could map it within your Windows environment. So they do exist out there, but I don't have one.
Sounds like a lot of headache to go through.
Sounds a lot of work.
The other side, the overlays. Have you bought? Is it because you bought the original game?
Because I have the original of a few of the games, so they come with them. You can actually. I'll share a link as well in the show notes. There's a place that sells these. So for games, just retro versions of them, and I guess you could download them as well. There's lots of stuff online. You could download them and print them off. I would imagine.
Are they all on the Atari Age website, the overlays, or like
most of them are? I found some of the controller overlays on another sort of console mods wiki, but a lot of stuff's in the Atari Age forums. That's a good place to go as well to have a look.
Yeah, because I mean, I did a bit of digging with this one because I've was struggling with the, as you say, the quick turning around and things.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing a specific config on the emulator, because obviously it doesn't take very long to remap things.
Oh yeah, it's very straightforward.
Remap things to make it, so the quick turnarounds was on the shoulder buttons and things like that. Yeah. So it's but I love it. I love the explosions. It's really destructive. Everything is destructive and things like that. And it, whilst I guess looking at it in today's eyes, you might think, oh, it's a bit twee and stuff like that with a simplistic 3D graphics, but there's a charm to it as well.
For sure. I mean, it's very rudimentary. It's very basic in a sense of the 3D polygons and stuff, but. Yeah, it's hard to convey the feeling of the game as you're plodding and smashing and blowing stuff up.
My trouble was that I was having so much fun blowing things up, and then I'd run out of weapon. And then I was like punching everything, thinking, "Oh darn!"
Yeah, that's the thing. There's limited, so yeah, there's crates and things that will appear when you blow up a certain building, and that'll either have like a repair for your robot as you get your health back, or it'll be ammunition or grenades. So there's a limited amount of stuff on a map, but yeah, you do run out eventually.
Yeah, and I guess so. When you say you played this, did you play this through the game drive?
Yes.
Or through the CD? Yeah.
Through the game drive.
Yeah, because I imagine it must be a nightmare. Do you have a CD drive for the Jaguar? No, it sounds like a headache.
It sounds like, I kind of wish I did in one sense, because one thing I never mentioned at the start of this was I really did also love Jeff Minter's video stuff that he did. So he ended up releasing the same, I think, for the Xbox, right?
Yes, he did.
In terms of his virtual light machine stuff that he did, and it was on the Nuon as well. But the Jaguar was where I first saw it, and you put in a music CD, you spin up the virtual light machine, and it's so trippy. You can press buttons on the controller to sort of change the look and the feel and things of it as well. It was really cool. Lots of sort of explosions and fractals and trippy stuff going on.
He's world class, isn't he, with his 3D effects?
Love it.
Yeah,
love it. I have actually managed to get that working as well with the big PMU emulator as well. You can actually download the Jaguar CD BIOS. Yeah. You can mount that within the big PMU emulator as part of the CD part, and then you can map it through to your sound card and play an MP3 or play some audio. MP3.
I was going to say because I'll be like, I don't know if I own a CD anymore. My music CD.
You're okay. You're safe. MP3 will work as well.
Yeah, because it's certainly, I think it was on the 360 as well. Maybe it was it?
That's right, it was 360 as well, yeah.
Yeah, really, really, I love Jeff Minter stuff. Yeah, really, really cool. No, great choice. This was one that actually, to be fair, when you cast your mind back, although it did come out in 97, didn't it?
97, yeah.
Soldier. But the Iron Soldier 1, which obviously came out a few years before, I think. I didn't right. I can imagine being really blown away with the 3D graphics there. Yeah. And
the original one was not long after launch. It was December 94.
Yeah, and that was really sort of impressive because, yes, you had some comparable ones on the, like on the Mega CD and stuff like that, but I thought this held up and played a lot better, to be fair.
Yeah, and actually one thing I didn't mention before, the Atari also brought out a different controller. I haven't talked about that. The Pro controller, which had, instead of the 3 buttons, the ABC, actually had 6 buttons, maybe a bit more like the sort of your standard 6-button Mega Drive controller, maybe.
Yeah, for the fighters, isn't it, really?
Yeah, for the fighters. It had a much better D-pad. It also had shoulder buttons as well.
Oh, it's a better D-pad. I didn't realise that.
Better D-pad. I had 2 shoulder buttons left and right as well, for which I think was compatible with this game and a few others as well. So...
Oh, that's awesome. Have you got a Pro controller or not yet?
I wish.
I bet they're rather expensive. Yeah, expensive.
I think I saw one on eBay being sold in the US for $500. No, thank you.
No, I don't know how people... I mean, kudos to people. I'm not criticising anybody doing it, but I just... when it gets to those sort of prices, I'd be thinking taking the whole family on a holiday or buying a little plastic device. Yeah. Yes. I think I could accept myself, yeah.
So the other good thing about Iron Soldier 2 and the Pro controller was that there's another company, so Songbird Productions. Again, I'll share a link in the show notes. So they did a reproduction of the Pro Controller for the Jaguar. It was a very limited run, unfortunately, and they're out of stock. But these ones do occasionally appear on eBay for, I think they've resold it for like $125 or so. So
Still crazy.
still a little bit of money. So yeah. So I keep my eye out, but I haven't seen one so far.
Is there any because it's a weird connector, isn't it? You can't plug in the Mega Drive. So I know CD32, those controllers go, if you go for Competition Pro, they can be mad prices. But you can plug in a Mega Drive controller because it's the same D pin, 8-pin.
Yeah, I think it's like a 15-pin or something. It's something really strange.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a weird one. I have seen there's been some interesting Bluetooth adapters for the actual Jaguar itself. So if you wanted to, you can get a Bluetooth adapter which plugs into your Jaguar, and then you can use a Bluetooth controller with that.
Oh,
so again, if you've got the hardware, that's another way to try and do it. So that's another way to try and work that as well.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this one. This was
good
because it was a surprise. I mean, obviously, Tempest 2000, I will always love that as one of my favourite games of all time, let alone just on the Jaguar. But yeah, there was what I loved with this, and you going through these games, there was a lot of ones new to me and that's why I love, and I know our listeners do too, doing these podcasts, because I think it's always great when people actually try these games themselves, because that's what it is all about. It's discovering new games. It's not just about nostalgia, is it?
Yeah, definitely. It's good. Yeah, I didn't have some of these games back in the day. I had played several of them, but the Jaguar CD ones, that I had no choice. I had no option to try and do that. The Jaguar CD was too expensive. I mean, there was a window when it was sold for £5 probably in Woolworths, but,
but moved on,
if only I'd bought one then,
Yeah, you were too busy playing Busby, wasn't it? That was the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Far too busy playing that. But like a Jaguar CD drive, if you can find one, you're probably looking at like £600-700.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Which is just ridiculous.
No,
I mean, they didn't make many, but
I'll stick with the emulation.
Big PMU, big PMU, and the Jaguar drive as well. So that works. The SD solution that works with a lot of the CD games too. So
although they're a bit like hen's teeth now, aren't they? They're quite difficult.
I think they're hard to get hold of. I've got a link that I'll share again in the show notes, which is a couple of places. Well, the guys who designed it, which was Retro HQ. So you can pick them up.
Cool, right. Okay, then Bob is getting more and more excited.
Yeah, good. Well, I think we might be getting better and better here. So Battle Morph is the next one.
Oh, honestly.
Few.
Yeah, no, Battle Morph. I'm going to say now, putting Tempest 2000 to the side, the ones I knew, this is my favourite one of the evening. This is amazing. Do you want to describe it to our...
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is the successor to the packed-in game Cybermorph, by the same team as well. So this was Jaguar CD. Again, a real shame because not many people will have got to play this when it came out. So yeah, this was very, very similar, but they fixed all the things that kind of went wrong, I think, or that weren't great with Cybermorph.
Like the controls.
The annoying lady who was saying, "Where did you learn to fly?" all the time.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the only games or first games for the Jaguar as well where you had fully customizable controls, and it took advantage of the Pro controller as well. So you can tell it was late in its life. So the fact you could program every button to do what you wanted was probably a first for this. But the main objective of the game, you're flying a ship. It's very much, I guess, Star Fox over the 3D landscape. It's all 3D, and you have to collect plasma energy to basically escape the planet and overthrow the Empire who have invaded your galaxy. But it's got nice full motion video. The in-game music is actually really nice. Again, it's on CD, so the music's nice. The sound effects are, I would say, pretty much on point, not too overpowering. The graphics are really done well. It runs at a pretty good frame rate.
Yeah, great controls. I mean, I love
controls.
Love going through the sort of like the tunnels and things like that.
Tunnels are amazing. Yeah, they're really good sense of speed, and some of the missions. There's so much variety in the missions. Really.
Yeah, it really held. I really felt it was comparable, and had more interesting variety than Star Fox, if I'm honest. And I love the fact you can go underwater as well. That's quite cool.
Yeah, it's a really nice effect. I didn't realise what I was doing at first.
Because I didn't realise, because one of the levels, which maybe it's the second level.
Yeah, I think you start underwater. And it's
you start underwater, and I took off. But I hadn't thought about it. I just thought it was part of the, well, you're just, it's just interesting.
You thought it was your atmosphere, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I knew it was water. But it just hadn't really thought about it. And then you're obviously looking on the map for the item you got to go, and I'm like flying around like for ages trying to say, well, it says it's here. It's like in the film Aliens, like they're right underneath us. And then I thought, oh, water. Go under there. And it was underwater. I was like flying around for ages. So that tickled me. But I love the, because you've got like those sort of tunnel sections that take you to different parts, and I was really taken with the variety of this. Every level felt suitably different, and there was and it's genuinely very unlike the original, where you're like constantly crashing and getting frustrated. This actually plays, you feel in control. You feel more like a Star Fox game, as you say, and just really impressive graphics. I mean, I again, this was as you say, a late release 95. So the trouble is, by the time these games were showing what the Jaguar could do, they were very much up against your the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation 1, wasn't it? At this point. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, I can't imagine. I think it scored really well. I think it got a lot of high scores, 80s, 90%, 76, 8 out of 10s and stuff. It did really
Edge
well.
gave it 7 out of 10, and Game Pro gave it 4 out of 5. So all were in that sort of, when you consider, like, again, Edge, notoriously grumpy, 7 out of 10 is really quite a good score.
That's a pretty decent score. Yeah.
So, and I completely agree. I was really taken with this one. It's one.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I'm going to be, I didn't really know. I mean, I'd heard of the game, but not really ever bothered to play it. And I just thought it was a really, really solid, fun game with loads of variety. I just definitely one I want to play more with. And I'd say to people, because normally most people may have tried the two standout titles that always get mentioned, which is Tempest 2000 and Alien vs Predator, and nothing else, and everybody has that misconception that everything else is rubbish or not, or average at
or not
best.
Great.
Or average at best. And the one thing that I came away from this show, and we're not even through all the games yet, is actually there's quite a lot of really quite decent games. There are a lot of Trevor McFurs and things like that, but there is an awful lot of
unfortunately.
Decent ones.
Yeah, there's a lot, very much so, a lot of decent games. Did you know an interesting thing as well about Battlemorph?
Test runs on the War Griffon infiltration fighter are complete. Delivery system is successful. Transformation systems are functional. Stand by for warp.
I thought at first the voiceover for the main sort of guy telling you what to do, it sounded like a very bad impression of Sean Connery.
Yes, I thought that.
So it was actually, interestingly, it was Rob Brydon.
Oh, Rob Brydon doing it.
He did the voice. So it's him doing an impression of Sean Connery. Not very well.
No. Although when Sean Connery did that James Bond game, the Russia with Love, he did a poor impression of Sean Connery.
Of himself, yeah.
Of himself.
But yeah, I was quite...
Talk about dialing it in, yeah. So maybe it was better than... yeah, it is a dodgy Sean Connery accent. I had no idea it was Rob Brydon.
It was Rob, yeah.
Oh, funny. But no, I really urge our listeners to give this game a go. It is a genuinely really, really good game, and night and day to what Cybermorph is, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine if this was... I mean, I know the timing didn't quite fit, but imagine if this was the game that was bundled in.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's the same team that did this game that was involved with Cybermorph.
Yeah, they just were.
But from what I've read, they were
hardware,
they were rushed to get it out as part of a packaged-in game. It wasn't kind of where they wanted it to be, and this one they fixed all the wrongs and they made it what they wanted it to look like. I think even then I read an article recently, which was the guy the main programmer, saying again that he wished he had a bit more time just to improve the frame rate even more. He thinks he could have done better with it, which is great to hear. But I mean, it runs really well. Yeah, no, I can't fault it. I mean, you said that so there's a cartridge version, because obviously I only played the CD version. No, this is only on CD. Okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. Oh, it was the other one that was the... Yeah, it was Iron Soldier 2. Iron Soldier 2. Yeah, no, it's a shame because, I mean, I can't imagine they sold many of those toilet seats. No. CDs. So. It's sort of a shame. I can't imagine it sold very well, this. But I'm surprised they didn't, the team didn't try to bring it to the Saturn or PS1, because I think they could have, just done a third game in the series or a remaster of this one, and they could have really been a real hit at the time. Yeah. Because there was such hunger for 3D graphics, isn't it? Yeah. No, great shout out this one. This is definitely my favourite of the night, I think. Of the ones that I didn't know about. Yeah. Is a motorbike game. Again, this appears in the Bob infomercials. Yes. Although oddly, you have the blonde presenter. She's quizzing all these guys who are doing like motocross. Yeah. And they're all talking about 64-bit and do the math and how amazing the Jaguar is. And then it cuts to the game, which is not motocross, but it is Super Burnout, which is a motorbike game. And yeah, this was really fun to play. Another expensive one. I think I bought this one. Oh my God. I hope my wife doesn't hear this. This was £95, I think I paid for a copy of this. It was sealed. Oh, that's quite... If that makes any difference. Well, did you open it? Or you... Of course I have. Yeah, I was going to say, well, no, I'm glad. I never understand people buying something and it's sealed. Yeah. I mean, I bought this before I got the game drive, so yeah, I had to open it. But yeah, it's a... Well, you want to anyway. You want to look at the manuals. By the way, how are the manuals on the Atari Jaguar? Are they quite fulsome, or are they quite like sparse? Well, I'd say they're probably middling. They're not that thick. If you think of maybe an Atari Lynx type stuff, it's in colour most of the time, but it's well printed. But they're not the thickest of things for sure. Yeah, but this one is basically like your super hang-on style, isn't it? Sort of from behind. But it runs blisteringly fast. It is really quite impressive, the speed and what they're throwing around the screens. Mm-hmm. Again, it shows you the original concept that they had for the Atari Jaguar, which
was to go up against your SNES and things like that, this really would have blown things out of the water if it had released at the time they were originally expecting, but delays meant it was delayed a couple of years, wasn't it?
Yeah, and this one came out in 95.
Yeah, it's quite late anyway, but
yeah. And it was a French studio, Shen Technologies, and then co-published by Atari. But yeah, very much like Sega's Super Hang-On kind of rival, arcade style motorbike racer. Again, a lot of, not so much weather, but certainly, you know, racing at night time, racing during the day, lots of different tracks there, a few decent game modes as well, all from just simply choosing a track and trying to get the fastest lap to championship mode where you race all laps. You can choose how many laps you want to do for every track. I would say it's hard.
It's a different skill set. If you go in like when I first went into it, I got really frustrated because I was wearing my sort of like Sega arcade racing cap and thinking Super Hang-On, and it really isn't. You have to brake into the corners.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into the flow of it, of that you've got to brake at the corners, and it becomes a really, I mean, it always is a good game, but you start to gel with it. It doesn't take very long to get to that place. And then I was really, really enjoying it. It's nice music as well. And I thought it just plays really, really solidly, and it's got lovely variety. It's a real sort of hidden gem because I think a lot of it only ever came out on the Jaguar, didn't it? So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So loads of people will not have discovered this, and it's a real shame. But you do have to learn the tracks and learn to brake on the sharp corners, or you will crash.
Yeah.
But
and there's a few different bikes you can get as well, so I think you can unlock them during the championship. And again, going back to what I said earlier on some of the codes and hidden secrets within some of the games, there's a code to actually unlock turbo speed if you wish, which is quite a fun one. You don't get to use it very often, I would say.
No, I was going to say it goes fast enough as it is.
It's already going fast enough, but you have to get to your top speed, and then you can press the turbo, and it takes you to ridiculous speed. I think that must be what it's called.
I would have preferred if they did the Amiga cheat for Super Hang-On where you got a machine gun. That would have been useful.
Yeah, well, definitely, it's hard, isn't it? Because when you do bump into another rider, sometimes you will come off, sometimes you'll get away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's can be unforgiving. So if you do crash into somebody, pretend you get back on your bike, you can lose touch with the group ahead pretty quickly.
Yeah.
When you're going, even when you get every corner right and you're going full speed and not braking much, it takes quite an effort to.
That's probably the biggest frustrating thing with this. It's not got rubber banding particularly.
Yeah.
So it is unforgiving in that regard, where you sort of like, well, what's the point? Particularly when you have like one crash that you feel wasn't your fault because you just happened to get hit by another bike and then you're lost out. Yeah, I still really, really enjoyed this one. I because it just looks good. It runs fast. As I say, it's just actually a really compelling racer, and I was surprised at the variety that you get to race on as well. It felt like very different, all the tracks that it sends you on. I mean, I certainly played this all the way through, and I gave a good couple of nights to this one. This was one that I just kept going back to. So really, really like this one. And likewise, again, obviously by the time Sega Saturn, and I mean, that's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, it's not far from Manx TT and games like that on the Sega Saturn. It's difficult in that market that it would stand on its 2 feet, isn't it? Just a shame how late a lot of these games came, and I just wonder how much of that is basic development was hard, so people took a while to develop these games, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. But
really good, really good
game.
Definitely one that I would urge to our listeners. And I mean, the most of these I would recommend. I'm quite impressed, and this is how I felt when you gave the list. Was like, wow, this is a really good. It's a much better system than I thought it was. Put it that way.
Yeah, but if only we could go back in time now and all buy a few. No.
Oh yeah. Well, I would never.
We could be rich now.
I never would sell the systems. Yeah.
Oh dear. had in terms of sort of the main games was, how could I not mention Alien versus Predator?
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, do you want to talk about this one a little bit? Because
Yeah,
I know
okay,
you're familiar with it.
Yeah, so I mean, this was like 1994, so pretty much an early release. I don't know if it was a launch title, but done by Rebellion Developments, so UK developer, now own 2000 AD, and this was really felt ahead of its time because it was like a Doom clone, bit slower paced, set in the Alien universe. But what was great is that you could control, there was basically 3 games. There, you could be the Marine, which quite frankly was the best storyline arc.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like more like your Doom, you know, you're a Marine going around the spaceship, making your way. What was kind of unique and cool about it was that how it was all interconnected, and you know, the entire space station, it was a bit more like Metroidvania, where you would open up areas and get to other parts of the ship. But that was really quite compelling, and you know, going up against the xenomorphs and, you know, having to avoid their acid for blood sort of like puddles that they would, you know, you have to be careful where you have to be careful
where you don't shoot them on a crossroads of a junction where you have to walk across it all the time.
Exactly. But I mean, it really was impressive. I mean, of course, it's more, the designs had the limitations of something like Wolfenstein. You know, it doesn't have quite the complex levels of your Doom or things like that. But you know, when you consider this is 1994, that's not too bad. The other characters that you can play, the other campaigns, you can be like a predator who you have to basically go against the alien queen and get her skull, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
And that's quite cool, a little gimmicky, but you know, you're up against the xenomorphs and marines and things, and you can turn yourself, use all the gadgets, and you got your claw and things like that. That's quite cool. And then the final one is you play the xenomorph, so the alien itself, and that's probably the weakest because it looks a bit silly because you've got your mouth, so you see that as your weapon. You got your claw, which doesn't look too bad, and your tail, and you're just going up against, you know, the marines and what have you. It's a nice idea, but probably it's the weakest of the three.
It's definitely.
I'm glad it's there.
It's the one I didn't play as much, for sure. I mean, I think I played as the Marine most of the time, and then a little bit as the Predator, which was good fun. Looking, you know, changing the optics and all that type of stuff, and you know, changing from infrared to this, that, or the next thing. It was some quite clever effects, I thought.
But I really enjoyed this, going back to it, because I have a real love of old school first person shooters. I love all your Blake Stones and your Wolfensteins and all of these classics, and so I don't even mind when it's more simplistic levels and things like that. But yeah, no, I've thought, going back to it, it's really gets the atmosphere. I mean, there's no in-game music, but in some ways it adds to the atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah, I say the suspense is there. I've been going back to, I mean, certainly back in the day, I was blown away by it. I would say going back to it, I wasn't blown away, but the suspense was there. There was an element of nostalgia for sure. The gameplay was good. I think it just suffered a little bit from the frame rate being a little bit on the slow side for what you might want out of it these days. I thought the graphics were still good. You know, everything looked nice. The digitized graphics were nice. But yeah, a few more frames a second would have been nice. Would have
helped, yeah. But it was amazing what they achieved.
Oh, really, for sure.
And particularly when they achieved it. It certainly was the only console winning. If you were looking to buy all the other games as good as we were shouting out, certainly at the beginning of the life cycle, this was the only one that really was a system seller. It was the one that would make you think, actually, I really want to buy a Jaguar. This is, I assume, was probably the clincher when you were doing the maths and you
exactly.
you saw this one. And let's be honest, I mean, for this kind of game, this was, well, it wasn't until Alien Trilogy, which came out in 1996, that we had anything like this in the Alien universe. I mean, this
That's
really
true.
created the world like never before. I mean, we had an Alien 3 gun, but they were all on rails in the arcades. There wasn't really anything like this. So,
it's not like this. No, not at all. It's a shame. It's a shame because, like you say, I think this is one of the best-selling Jaguar games. I mean, over 50,000 copies they'd sold, and like you said, their killer game in effect. It's just a shame it didn't come out maybe a little bit earlier in its life cycle too, and also a shame that the developers they were in discussions as well for bringing out a sequel for the CD, but that got shelved due to the Jaguar not doing very well and the CD unit not selling well, and it was the end of the road. So that unfortunately never came to light, because it would have been quite cool to see what it could have been like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame they never thought to sort of like, I guess they were tied in with Atari, but it's just a shame they didn't try to bring this across to, to like the Sega Saturn or things, it would have been quite compelling in some ways. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think this is, of all of them, this really showcased what the Atari Jaguar was capable of, and it's a shame that clearly, outside of John Carmack and a few other examples, no one really put the Atari Jaguar through its paces like this one.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was more, clearly it was difficult to develop, and you needed skills, like sheer skills, to develop this level of game on the hardware. It wasn't like easy, I get that, but if only there was more. Was it called Attack the Penguins and games like that, and more games like this, they would have had a fighting chance.
It would be better. And I think when you look down the list of the 200 and something games that were in the pipeline, there were some good ones in there, but most people found it, like we said at the start, too difficult to program for, too late in the day. It just didn't get the traction. So
I know, it's quite sad when you see like the adverts and it's got the list of all the games. You're like, well, that didn't come out. Yep. So sad.
Nope. Nope.
I mean, I know because you were saying obviously about like some of the homebrew scene, like the Mortal Kombat and things, but I would much rather, personally, this is just from a personal standpoint, I'd much rather someone take like the engine of like Alien versus Predator and try to do a sequel, as you say, something using the engine but modding other levels or something like that, or this is definitely. I really enjoyed going back to it, and apart from the Xenomorph campaign, which surprised me actually, because I thought I would enjoy that, like get to be the Xenomorph. I thought would be pretty cool, but it's like all those Jaws games, isn't it, where you get to play the shark and it's not as fun as you think.
It's a bit dull after all that.
Really good choice. Really good choice. So,
Cool.
is that the last of the main games?
That was the last of the main games. Got a few in the sort of honourable mention cycle, which we can touch on as well.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to like this one. In fact, I'm pretty sure you've said you like it. So Defender 2000 was initially going to be in my main list, but I thought we already had one from Mr. Jeff, so let's put his Defender 2000 into... I still think honourable mentions is worthy. This cartridge, to try and buy it now, it is as rare as anything and probably going to set you back 150 quid,
Really?
which is crazy. So if you're going to do that, buy yourself a game drive.
Yeah, you might as well buy
Basically, runs on there fine. Or big PMU, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, emulator-wise, that ran perfectly. That's not where I had the issue with it.
No, I can imagine where you had the issues.
Yeah. Well, right, okay, so just to explain, so obviously I think everybody knows Defender.
Yes.
And this has 3 modes, doesn't it? It has a bit like Tempest 2000.
Yeah, it's got your original Defender game.
Yeah, Defender 2000, and does it have a plus as well?
I think it is,
Yeah, but the problem I have, the Defender 2000, the fundamental problem I have is the ship is too big for the play area, and therefore only way you've got any hope with the speed that everything is going is to look at... You spend the whole time looking at the radar, not what's going on in the action.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, actually, I don't really get on with Defender as a whole anyway, so you're always on a low...
You're in a losing streak already.
I'm on a losing streak already. And I found the original Defender was a bit better. You know, the mode that's original Defender.
Proper size sprites and all the rest of it, yeah.
But I love the music. I love all the way the little blokes dangle and act as extra weapons. And it's got a lot going for it. I mean, it's a Jeff Minter game. But fundamentally, I found I just kept dying because I kept crashing into things coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour in the other direction.
I think you're totally spot on. I had exactly the same issue, and it's interesting because it's very much like the Connex game that we touched on earlier, where his Mutant Camels, where again it's a spin on Defender with crazy graphics and lots of pixel art and parallax scrolling and lots of vibrant colors everywhere and craziness going on all over the place. But in that game too, the main ship is too big, and I do get that. It's the same here. It's just far too big a sprite.
And I find it weird because Jeff Minter's so good at play testing his own games.
Yeah.
That I don't know why such a fundamental thing. Why
I don't know why nobody said your main sprite's a bit on the big side. It's a little bit big.
I get why nobody says, because Jeff Minter and Giles just play the game themselves. I don't know if Giles was around at that time, but assuming he was, his partner. But I mean, Jeff Minter does the game that he wants to do, but normally he is able to spot and hone things. And I just found it weird that such a fundamental thing of the ship being too big. Mm-hmm. Because it does break the game. Because as far as I was concerned, the only real way to play was looking at that radar. In which case, you're not looking at all the wonderful excitement going on. You're looking at dots on the screen.
And I think once I got a little bit used to the size of the ship, I know what you mean. I probably did for Defender. I spent a little bit too much time maybe looking at the radar. I did have more fun with it, and there's a couple of unlockables as well. So if you can persevere and get yourself in the high score on the Defender 2000 mode, and also I think it was the original mode, and you put in a particular name, it unlocks a couple of fun modes for you. So there's like a Pong battle.
Oh yeah, very cool. Is that basically like Pong, as in like two bats and a ball?
Two bats and a ball. But I mean, and that is all it is. It's you against the computer. There's no Defender stuff going on. There's no aliens, nothing else. It's basically that. It's just two bats and a ball and some sort of plasma crazy colours going on in the background.
That's just putting on the high score, is it?
Yes. Yeah, it's putting a particular name in the high score. And then there's another version as well of I think you're turning your ship into a camel or whatever it is as well. So a different mode again that you can do, which was a bit of fun.
But that's essentially Defender, but just with different sprites.
Different sprites in there, yeah.
Is it the same size sprite, or is it make it a bit smaller?
I didn't measure it, but it's about the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
So-
no, it's yeah, no, I
So
did
I
play
think
this
if you,
quite a bit.
I think if you like Defender, you'll probably like the original and the Plus. The 2000, you might think it's a bit of fun, but I think you're going to have the same opinion. The sprite's too big and it maybe detracts from the fun a little bit.
Yeah. I just found it frustrating, and it's clearly not just me. Like if you watch videos of people playing it, whereas like normally you watch people play and they're just like seem to boss through it. This time, even on the long plays, people are just exploding left, right, and centre. So it's clearly not just me.
It's not you. And I would agree. Okay, well let's move on quickly. Bob's getting grumpy now. Another one was Alice's Mom's Rescue.
Yes, I mean this came out in 2015, and it's done by Ryan Games. This is like an indie title, really. This is because one of the cool things with the Jaguar, they was it Hasbro owned it at the time. They basically made it open source, allowed anybody to sort of like make games for the Jaguar, and thus it's always had a rather healthy experience ever since. And this just, I don't know, great music, definitely Harry Potter influenced music. There were some of the ditties like,
that's very true.
like Harry Potter. But it's sort of like a puzzle platformer, as you say, and just very twee, actually. I mean, I was quite taken with this, and this was one that my granddaughter grabbed the controller off my hands for a bit because she would like the look of because you play a little girl. And she, my granddaughter's little girl as well, obviously. So she was quite taken with the character, and then found it quite frustrating and difficult because it is, and then handed back the controller.
Yes, I mean it's a very simple premise of escaping each level, as it were.
It's just getting the keys, isn't it?
Getting the keys, collecting as many of the jewels as you can. But there are some tricky platforms, not as tricky as Bub Say from earlier, but there's certainly some little tricks in there. And I love the mechanic of jumping onto the mushroom to, a big mushroom to make yourself a normal sized character, and jumping on a small mushroom to shrink your character so that you could go through little tunnels and underneath sort of stalactites and things. Which was,
I was quite taken with
well
this
thought
one.
out.
I played it quite a bit. It does get frustrating, as you say, because it's some quite tough jumps and things, but it's also engaging as well. It's one that I'm surprised it hasn't appeared anywhere else, has it? It's a shame that they didn't like port this to I think it would do quite well on as a cheap game on the Steam or something like that. I would have thought, but good one, good honourable mention that one.
Another one, Atari Carts was I would have liked to have put this in the main collection, but it just got a little bit frustrating for me. Atari Carts. This is another one which, if you wanted to buy a copy of this, you're looking at like £400 or £500, which is insane.
I was a bit confused with this because obviously it's done by the same people who did the Super Burnout, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I was confused. Did it actually get released in 1995, or is it one that got cancelled and then, although it was made in 1995, it didn't truly get released until years later? I couldn't quite.
I haven't been able to find an awful lot on that one either. I know it's being Songbird Productions are re-releasing it, and I think again through Telegames or whoever that this one came about again. So I think because it was again late in life, there were not many of this around, which is kind of made it some weirdly desirable game, and the price of it for an original copy is crazy.
I mean thankfully the Atari 50th anniversary collection, this does have Atari carts on there, which is rather cool, so you can explore. I mean it's obviously a Mario Kart clone. It has visual tweaks and things that actually elevate it above something like Mario Kart, but it doesn't have the playability of Mario Kart. It's sort of missing something. There's something quite soulless with it, despite all the good music and things like that. It's definitely missing some of that sort of like magic dust.
There's something missing. You're right. It's got their interpretation of the Mode 7 style graphics, right? It's got It's what I think it's missing is the proper power ups. There's no shells and bananas and all that sort of stuff, and they went along their own route of doing stuff like that. But but they're really hard to see what they even are as you're driving over stuff.
I don't think I ever worked out how to use the power-ups because I was like pressing all the buttons or pressing the keypad buttons. I couldn't work it out, but I was winning anyway, so I didn't really care, because it didn't really matter. They didn't seem to have any. One of the things I love with it is you get to play Bentley Bear, which is the bear from Crystal Castles. So I was happy. He was the only character I played the whole time. Bentley Bear was my man. He was really really cool. I like some of the graphics. You had sort of like a Disney castle in the background and on some of the levels, and there was nice variety to the levels. But I think you're right. The soulless element, it didn't have quite the imagination. It had probably a better engine than Mario Kart, but then of course you'd expect that being like a couple of years later. But and they're not alone. I mean, every time Europe tried to do like a Mario Kart clone, they didn't seem to fundamentally get it. I mean, I remember Core Design doing BC Racers and a few other ones like it, and they all make that same mistake where it just feels soulless because they haven't got the idea of using the weapons and power-ups in the same way. Yeah, and the ideas on the levels. Just missing
the balance as well. I mean, I always found, that's the good thing about Mario Kart, right? Everything's really well balanced.
Yeah,
it's got that yo-yo dynamic that you're never that out of touch of the race normally. You can get back into it again. This one was missing that, I think, as well. Yeah,
it just seemed, I was either like getting super far behind, and then you'll make one mistake and they all go past, and you're like to last place all of a sudden. And but having said that, I mean, I did have fun with it. I'm not gonna, it's an average. I'd put this as average. I wouldn't say it's like a travesty or anything like that. But it's
it was good, and I think the graphics and sprite works.
I wouldn't pay £100 or whatever you were saying.
Oh, it was 400. I think Songbird Productions. Yeah. It's going to annoy some people, I think, because I think Songbird Productions are doing a reproduction release of this for a lot less. So the poor collectors, they won't be so happy.
Well, quite frankly, if people are going in for it to make money, you should go into it for enjoying the game.
Exactly.
If you're into the resale value, then
and the game's not worth £450 for sure.
And to be honest, I mean, if people, the people that really want, that are going to play it on the Atari 50th anniversary edition. Yeah. I mean, it runs perfectly there. So there are ways of playing it anyway. So good shout out.
Good fun. Another one was Zool 2, which is another favourite of mine actually. I have a copy of this too, which again I probably paid a little bit too much for. But
don't tell the wife.
Tell her, yeah. I think it was more in the £50 region. I think we're okay. I think we're in the proper retail price. I would have.
This is actually a really good version, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, obviously, I love this as well. I mean, I do think it's a better than the first Zool game. Yeah. They did sort of take it further. But I thought this was a really good version. I mean, obviously, I loved it on the Amiga and the CD32. I mean, obviously, I had the amazing CD music on the CD32. I still think it's better on the CD32, but the speed of how everything runs and how it plays, I mean, it felt really good playing this one.
I mean, the controls were tight, graphics were lovely. Fluid, fast running, all the candy popping around everywhere as you're jumping around. Good fun, this game. And I've always liked Zool anyway, so.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I was quite disappointed. I mean, clearly it didn't do very well, but they did the Redimension Zool.
That's right, yeah.
Because I've always thought the sequel was the better game. I felt Zool got quite weak on some of the levels. So it's like, I mean, I would love to see like a remaster of Zool 2, like they did with the Redream stuff. But obviously not to be. But really, really good version on this one. I was quite taken. And at least it was only, like you said, it was £50, was it?
Yeah, £50. Or free on an emulator.
Free on emulator, yeah. No, I was quite taken with this one. I was quite taken with this
Glad
one.
you liked that one too. The next one, I don't know if I liked it per se, but it was a bit different. So Primal Rage, which was your sort of, I don't know how you sum this one up, a dinosaur fighter.
Yeah, I mean, even on any of the versions, I don't know quite how I feel with Primal Rage. It's as I say, a dinosaur fighter, but it always felt a little limited in the moves because it's a dinosaur fighter.
Yeah,
so,
and it's really interesting. Like looking at the Jaguar control list for this, it really does look like all of the dinosaurs have an almost never-ending list of moves. But can I pull any of them off? No.
Yeah, but is that because you're doing the 3-button, or is it with a Pro controller?
The Pro, I mean, this was designed, like you say, for the Pro controller in mind. So you can map the buttons onto a normal controller. So you've got your ABC and then the number pad. But trying to play a fighter with buttons, a D-pad, and a number pad is, you need like 2 pairs of hands for this, right? So it's not fantastic. I did have a bit of fun with this game, and I did think it was worth mentioning. It was another one of the CD ones, so
yeah,
I think
definitely worth mentioning.
There was some decent music, some full motion video stuff, and I thought it was a fairly good representation of the game. So I think it did a decent job with it, but it maybe isn't the best game in the first place.
No, good shout out. Yeah, I thought it was all right, the Primal Rage, but yeah, as we've sort of established, I just don't. I'm just not good enough skill wise with fighters. I just do the button bash and hope. Which I noticed actually, I took my granddaughter just as a side to Retro Realm, the place in Warsaw, and it was so funny watching Mira play. We did like Marvel superheroes or one of those ones, and she's actually looking the other way, beating me or a mum, because she's just battling all the buttons and she's just doing these wonderful moves, and she's like not paying any attention to what's on. She's looking at the lights behind her.
How soul destroying.
Yeah. But it was funny because I mean, to be fair, I was like, holding back to let her win a little bit.
Yeah.
But I could see with my daughter, she wasn't. She was getting thrashed. But it was the additional insult of looking the other way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Oh my gosh.
But that kind of how I feel, and with fighting games, and I know it's just because people do learn the moves and take it to another level, but I just never really take it that way, really.
Fair enough.
So what other ones? I like all these suggestions.
Yeah. So NBA Jam was the next one, which I think this is more reminiscent, really. I mean, it's a basketball game, right? But more reminiscent of the Super Nintendo style game. I mean, it ran well in the Jaguar. It was fairly fun to play. A little bit frustrating at times. Huge sprites. Fairly fast actioned. Didn't get to play it 2-player, so.
I love NBA Jam. Like they got it obviously in the arcade club in Bury. No, NBA Jam is really good. I probably got the fondest memories playing it on the Sega Saturn, but of course that was years later. This is a really solid version of it. Really, it's got all the extras, and I think this was quite impressive for those sort of playing. But again, did it offer enough above the equally rather impressive like 32X version or the SNES version? Probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it did.
But I do love this one.
But it was, I mean, it is, should I say, probably 10,000 times better than the other awful basketball game on the Jaguar, White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah, that's so bad. And it's so funny on that infomercial. That's the one that they
and I think it came out 2 years after NBA Jam. If I remember rightly, NBA Jam was like 93. It was one of the first. Whereas White Men Can't Jump was 2 years later. Oh my gosh.
And it's a terrible game. And it's not even got any of the characters from the film.
I don't even think it's...
nothing,
I don't think it's even finished from what I've read about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean it's so funny going back to that infomercial, because again you have the sexy roving reporter, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's surrounded by all these lying toe rags,
basketball players.
Basketball players.
all been slipped 50
Paid.
bucks to say this is amazing. Never seen it in their lives. Oh my god.
Yeah, this is life changing. Really? Life?
Yeah. Life changing.
You couldn't tell.
Never play this again. The interesting thing though is it was, I think it came sold with the 4-player multi-tap.
Oh, what, the white man? Well, this NBA Jam?
No, not NBA Jam. Unfortunately not. No, the white men can't jump one.
So you have 4 times the crap.
4 times, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Lucky us, yeah.
Lucky us. Anyway, that wasn't an honourable mention. How did I get onto that? So let's move on
That was
from
a
NBA.
dishonourable mention. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting there. So penultimately, we have Runer Pinball.
Yeah, this was quite good, wasn't it? Because of course you've also got like Pinball Fantasy.
Yeah, Pinball Fantasy is good as well.
But of course, you know, I mean, I have fond memories of playing that on the Amiga and the CD32. It was interesting with Runer Pinball, wasn't it? Because you have only 2 tables, but they're quite like multi-leveled, isn't it?
Yes.
As you go through, and it's quite the cool themes. I mean, I probably didn't play it enough, given that it's just, you know, because it was just, you know, because it was an honourable mention. I mean,
I think there's 2. I actually have this one as well. It's a physical copy, boxed, not sealed, but yeah. So I did enjoy it on the real hardware as well. There's 2 pinball tables on this, and like you say, they're kind of multi-leveled in terms of the ball. You kind of play it in the top half of the table initially, and then once it slips down, as it will do, you play in the bottom end part of the table. Yeah, it was good fun. Probably not any better or worse really than an Amiga version or an ST version of a pinball game, though. That's probably the slight downside on this. Yeah,
I mean, when you compare it even to, like, you know, some of the later ones that came on, like Slam Tilt or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It didn't really hold up.
No. But a bit of fun fad.
Done by High Voltage Software, famous for Leisure Suit Larry, Magna Cum Lord.
You get a sense of that a little bit from the graphics on the tables, maybe as well.
Yes, there's a bit of raunchiness.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
That's not why I picked it.
Yeah. You can lie to us, but can you lie to the listeners? I thought it was quite a unique one. It's certainly one that I never played. And only came out on the Jaguar, I believe. I've never seen it come elsewhere. So,
yeah, that's all it came out.
Interesting one. Yeah.
And last but not least, World Tour Racing, which was another CD one. And I only stumbled across this one very recently, actually. And I think I was pretty much blown away by its speed and the music and the sort of arcadey feel. Think Virtua Racer, I guess, is probably how I would sum this one up.
But better than Checkered Flag, I take
it. A lot better than Checkered Flag, yeah. This is a playable game that's fun.
You can control the car.
It's fast, it's fun, graphics are nice. It's not the fastest frame rate per se, but the music's really good on the CD as well. That really, for me, took it to another level because it was really high tempo, kind of made you know, that arcadey feel of racing.
And when did this get released? Is it one that's been done later, or
I think it was a little bit of a later one actually. I think this was released a little bit later. This was again CD, so later in its life, 1997, June 97. So Teak London was a developer, and ended up getting actually published by Telegames, who still to this day are a good place to go for, I would say, Atari Jaguar stuff, Atari Lynx as well, and a lot of other stuff. They do hold stock still in telegames.co.uk website.
They couldn't sell the buggers.
Yeah, pretty much. They also sell some of the homebrew stuff that's come out that people have done physical releases for too. So
I've just got visions of like a skeleton with a headset waiting for a call. From the infomercial. Come on, Bob, phone up.
Come on, Bob, phone up quick. Oh, God, it's Alistair again phoning. What's he want now? Oh, dear. But yeah, I found this one really fun. I must. Did you get to try this one at all? I know Kingy gave this one a go
No, because it was last minute. I mean, I did play the other one you suggested, which was Blue Lightning.
Yeah.
Which was quite good. A sort of slower pace afterburner.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed that one. But this one, from what you described and things, it looks like it, and what I've seen, it looks right up my street. I think I would love it, but yeah, just because it came so late in the day, I just didn't have time to play it. Because I think you'd only, as you mentioned, only discovered.
Oh, just a few days ago, I think I found this one.
Yeah, so I definitely will try and give this game a go and spend some time with it.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. No, awesome. I mean, so is that all the honourable mentions?
That was all honourable mentions. I mean, there's a few. Yeah. I had a few honourable mentions in the homebrew world as well. So there's a couple of companies that do some stuff here, like Reboot Games and True Fun Games. So I'll leave a couple of links in the show notes that people can have a look at. And definitely. A couple of other resources from Atari Age forums, Songbird Productions, and another a book company that I saw as well. Guys done a lot of game guide books, so Zaffin Books. They look like some nice books that they've done there, reviews and lots of coverage of all the games for the Atari Jaguar and other things as well. So.
Oh, very, very cool. No, that's really good. No, I have to say it was a really good lineup. I'd never really given the Jaguar its dues, to be honest, because I always felt the Jaguar was a bit of not a joke. That sounds cruel, but as a kid, you were scratching your head when you were watching the advertising or things and looking at the games and thinking.
You were thinking, I don't look anything. I'm not anything like Bob from the advert.
I was thinking I have to say, watching that infomercial, I was almost ready to dial. It was that compelling. But that might have been the red leather, like sexy leather leotard. But
yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, it could have been. But I'm easily sold. But honestly, if you do have time, try to watch that infomercial because it is genuinely entertaining. It knows it's being glib and it knows it's being
an absolute cheesy
fest. Yeah, but it's done in tongue in cheek, and it's just so much love and thought put into it. It makes you beam ear to ear. I was loving watching that. But I will say, going into this, I'm so glad we did this episode because there were so many games I discovered and so many games that whilst I knew, going back to it, you realise, things like Rayman and stuff. I genuinely think gameplay wise, it's probably the best version to play. Very, very solid. So it just shows you that the Jaguar, if it concentrated a bit more on 2D games,
definitely,
it might have had a more success than trying to put things like Cybermorph and games like that. Yeah, it just needed something to differentiate its power a little bit more, wasn't it?
Yeah, but no, I'm glad you got to experience a few new games, and I have as well. And like you say, there's a good catalogue. There's not too many. Obviously, games that are there. The homebrew scene, as I say, is pretty vibrant, and there's a lot of stuff there. Unfortunately, some things are ports from other older games, which some folks might not be interested in. But there's definitely some original ones in there too, which are worth a look.
No, yeah, definitely. I will be spending more time with the Jaguar, and I urge our listeners, dive into some of these games and
let us know what you think.
Enjoy. Yeah, would love to hear what you think, and then when you play Bubsy or Busby, you can blame Almac.
Thanks.
Suggesting it.
Just make sure you follow that up with Rayman or Battlemorph afterwards to balance things out a bit.
Yeah. No, of all of them, Battlemorph, please try that one. If you're only going to try one game, Battlemorph, I think is a real hidden gem. It really is really good.
And if nothing else, you get to hear Rob Brydon doing a really bad impression of Sean Connery. So
yes, and it's really bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, keep it retro.
Bye.